What's better than sticking your nose into everybody's business? Whispering dirty little secrets about people you know? And general gossip about anyone that you dislike? Well, making it legal, of course. Stick with me and I'll tell you about Ozark's new ordinance. Judging by the number of people that attend city council meetings here in Ozark, it's easy to say that nobody really gives a shit what goes on in this town. So let me catch you up to date on some of the things that's been happening. New City Ordinance 2019-24 is the greatest thing the city has ever implemented, if you like being up in somebody else's business.
You see, there's no water movement whatsoever. It's just stagnant. The folks around here say not only the flooding is the problem, but this is a breeding ground for mosquitoes. And let me read what the city, they can force this on you, but they won't take care of their own business. And their new law says it shall be unlawful for any property owner or occupant of any real property located within city limits of Ozark to fail or refuse to cut weeds, grass, blah, 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 blah. It goes on to say, and to fail or refuse to abate fire and flooding hazards. The city of Ozark's breaking its own rules. You can see here, this ditch doesn't drain. The neighbors here have told me it doesn't drain because there's gravel back behind it that the street department refuses to clean out. The street department won't do anything about this. And apparently the former mayor had been notified dozens of times and simply didn't care. We have a new mayor, and look at that, business as usual. Oh, here's another one for you. Here's the sign at City Park. Doesn't exactly look welcoming and clean. Again, I'm just nitpicking here, but you know, come on, man. Clean up your own mess before you come tromping into my yard. It shall be unlawful for any owner to fail or refuse to repair, remove, or raise any house, building, and or structure which has deteriorated to such a condition or has been damaged to such an extent as to be dilapidated, unsightly, unsafe, unsanitary, obnoxious, or to constitute a fire hazard or in other manner be detrimental to the public welfare to such a degree as to be found and declared a nuisance by the city. Clean up your own mess before you come into my yard. It shall be unlawful for any property owner or occupier of real property located within the city of Ozark to use said real property for the open storage of any abandoned motor vehicle or parts. City ordinance that they passed, and they make you live under this. It's reading the same law. It shall be unlawful for any property owner or occupant of any real property located within the city of Ozark to fail or refuse to cut weeds, grass, dead, dying trees, or fail to refuse to remove garbage, rubbish, or other unsightly and flooding hazards, or to fail and refuse to fill up or remove stagnant pools of water or any unsanitary thing, place, or condition which might become a breeding place for mosquitoes, flies, germs, harmful to the health of the community. This is absolutely the worst breeding ground for mosquitoes in the entire city of Ozark. Two sets of rules. They make you do things, but they won't live by their own rules. I've got a message for Ozark's mayor and city council. Why don't you clean up your own backyard before you start looking into mine? The state auditors handed you documentation a year ago that seemed to indicate that about 6 or 7 people had committed crimes over there. And yet not a single person has been fired and not a single person has gone to jail. In addition to that, they told you that you've been breaking the law by how you make payments out to various organizations. And they told you that you have to stop doing that. You broke the law. The city of Ozark broke the law. And instead of you being in trouble for it, and following the auditor's guidelines, it's just business as usual. And you just kept writing those checks without doing a thing to make it legal. This is one of those things that just absolutely
irritates me about this city's government. Every single time there is a new ordinance, it is pushed through so quickly that the average citizen has no idea that a new law has been enacted. It always goes through the exact same process. Something materializes at a city council meeting, and with very little debate, very little input, Susan Holman always votes to suspend a second and third reading so we can get this thing through as fast as possible. On several of the bills, or they're called here, ordinances, they declare an emergency situation so that they can vote on them the very same night that they're presented. This way, no one in the city of Ozark has a chance to actually get pissed that the city government's trying to railroad something by them. This has been a common practice ever since I started going to city council meetings. You see, the city relies on the archaic way of giving it to the local newspaper, which has stake in the city council. There's so many people that are either related or friends that they know that they can put it in this bullshit newspaper and it will give you just enough information that they stay legal, but not enough information that you might get pissed off. The population of Ozark has not changed in 40 years. Neither have the ideas of the city's leadership. With Mayor Hall and crew, we're still stuck in the 80s. When you don't have any ideas and you don't have any education in management and you don't have any leadership skills, the only thing you're left to do is meddle in other people's lives or micromanage your supervisors. So instead of alleviating the suffering of the 1/3 of this town's population that lives in poverty, or doing anything to modernize city government, or do anything at all that would stop the eyesores of downtown Ozark and the falling down buildings and the busted windows and the bad roads, and the list goes on and on and on. Now we're just going to tell people how they need to keep their property in shape. One of the most ridiculous parts of this law falls under Section 6 under the heading of inspection. And if I told you this, you would just shake your head and say, no, that can't be right. So I'm just going to read it to you. No notice as described in Section 7 below shall be issued to any owner or occupant until a thorough inspection of the condition of the relevant real property and or structure has been conducted by the mayor, code enforcement officer, police officer, fire chief, or city attorney, or other designated representative of the mayor, and that official or officials determine that the existing condition of the real property and or structure constitutes a substantial health, fire, flooding, safety, or aesthetic hazard or detriment to the well-being of the inhabitants of the city. To paraphrase Led Zeppelin, if there's a bustle in your hedgerow, don't be alarmed. It's Roxy Hall snooping around your backyard. Welcome to Ozark, folks. There are two things in this law that should really disturb people. Well, three, counting the fact that we just passed a law that gives the mayor her permission to go into your yard and inspect your property. But besides that, this line right here is something that you should show up at the next city council meeting and let's rescind some of this, because I don't like the way this is worded, and when I point it out to you, neither will you. Official or officials determine that the existing condition of the real property and or structure constitutes, and it goes through a list of things, but the one that stands out is aesthetic hazard. That's a nonsense word, because if you don't know what aesthetic means, it's kind of how stuff looks. I say it's subjective because different people have different taste. I know people that like to plant shrubbery around their house. I know other people that cuts every shrub down around their house because they don't think it looks right. I know people that plant fruit trees. I know people that cut all the trees off their property. The point is, we passed a law where if someone, also known as Mayor Hall, or the code enforcement officer or the police chief or the fire chief, they don't like how something looks, then you're in a heap of trouble, boy. The other thing that I really don't like here is designated representative. I recall a story about a certain politician's husband lurking around a single woman's house back last fall during election season looking for a campaign sign. Well, that means that pretty much anybody could be a designated representative. Anybody they want to appoint could go onto your property, not like the way it looks, and you're going to get a ticket. This has to be stopped. What's it going to take for the people of Ozark to get excited enough about something that they quit letting these stupid laws get railroaded past you? Whether anyone at City Hall likes it or not, over 1/3 of this town lives in poverty. And every single time I've brought it up, they laugh at me and they mock me like it's something they don't believe. Well, it's very real. You know, there's just been a bunch of little nitpicky things and a bunch of publicity stunts and a bunch of micromanaging, all because nobody really cares. You know what? When you're living in poverty, you're suffering. And these people don't seem to understand that. You know who suffers the most? Little kids. So go ahead and mock me. Go ahead and make stupid little rules. Go ahead and write checks to your friends. Go ahead and spend every dollar you can take in off the backs of these poor people to enrich your friends and relatives' lives. Go ahead and do it, because someday there's going to be a reckoning for that. And maybe it won't be here, maybe it'll be somewhere else. I don't care how many times you go to church every week, your actions refute your beliefs. You've let people suffer year after year after year in this town, and you can't keep doing this. There's something deeply troubling about this law. It's authoritarian in a way that nobody needs. When we write laws where someone can make a decision, a legal decision, based on how something looks to them, man, that's troubling. You know, this whole thing just stinks mostly because it's just busy work. It's busy work because nobody knows how to fix any problems. I suspect they really don't want to fix any problems, because as long as we stay in this little bubble, this same community that hasn't really changed much in 40 years, then these people stay in power. You get too many people from outside coming in, and they're not going to put up with your bullshit. But no, this city government just keeps writing little ordinances to stay busy and look like they care. And they've done absolutely nothing to better this city. They've done nothing to stop the suffering among the poor kids in this town. They've done nothing to make this community attractive in any way. They've done nothing to get Ozark's fair share of that $80 million that drives right past this town every year to go to Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue. They've done nothing because they don't want it to change. People of Ozark, you absolutely cannot let this kind of law stand on the books. It gives investigative power to the mayor. It gives investigative power to someone the mayor just says has that authority. And worst of all, you could get in trouble for some arbitrary thing that is just nothing more than a disagreement in taste. You got to stop this stuff, Ozark. You got to speak up, or you're going to get run over. And the thing is this town can't survive this very much longer, because it's the 21st century. Nowhere else in the United States that I've been lives like this. Ozark's leadership lives in a bubble that was created in 1980, and it's got dank, stinky air in it with no new ideas. And the thing is, the rest of the world has kept going. There's some great things happening in the world. The world is a beautiful place with cool stuff going on. Why are we keeping Ozark from having that? I've got a lot more to say, folks. I've got, I think, 5 videos made already. Stay tuned. It's going to get warm. So don't forget to subscribe. Leave me a comment below. Next video, we're going to figure out what's happening to the tax dollars here in Ozark, Arkansas. All right, thank you.